All right. I don't know how many people here, but hello. So we got a couple people in the chat. That might just be us, but that's okay. So we are live. We are speaking right now. I think you guys should be audible.
Hello? ScurvyGerm isn't here yet. He let us know he'll probably be a little bit late. He will pop in whenever he gets here.
I want to say hello to our two people in the audience right now. Genova, I just want to congratulate you. I know you won RRC recently. That's a big thing for you. I think that's great. All right. So I think we are safe to start going over the previous brackets. Well, people, I suppose people will climb it eventually.
Also give more time for Scurvy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Leah, your mic is still quiet.
Okay, I'm gonna turn myself up in Discord.
Yeah, on
then.
Discord you're at 200 and I can still barely hear you.
All right, hold on. Whoop. How's that? Is that better?
Mhm.
All right, cool.
Make sure.
Oh crap! Okay, we have 8 viewers now.
Yep. We're popping off now.
Oh crap! All right. Well, I remember we peaked at 15 with the first episode.
Alright, make sure you don't have the other audio stuff we did before, like how you're only audible on the left.
See, here's the thing. I don't know what the issue is, so I don't know how to fix it. If I'm only coming in through the left, I am not sure how to fix that.
That time.
I'll
I
be
just
right
saw
back in a
someone in
minute.
Twitch chat.
That's no problem. We're gonna go over the brackets anyway, so we need you. The only time we need you here is like 8. All right, so you can
Take your time. People are still filing in anyway, so we're in no rush.
I'm gonna prepare myself. I'm gonna pet my kitty. Hi, Josie. Oh, meow.
Next thing we need is a cat cam done.
I don't know. I'm working on getting a camera. I have a job now, which is nice. So I'm receiving the dollars.
Capitalism,
And I will.
employment.
Yes. Well,
We're in the rat race now, boys.
Yeah, no shit. Before I had a job, I really wasn't doing anything. But now that I'm actually, doing stuff, it's kind of fun. Actually, I work at an amusement park. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You're telling us about that.
Yeah, it's Kennywood. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I worked the past 8 days and I have tomorrow off, so it's pretty cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, it is.
All right, bracket, I guess. Unless you're still fixing audio stuff.
Something is messed up with the audio.
That's all I saw. Someone in Twitch chat just said something was messed up.
Okay.
I'm gonna pull up bracket too, so I know what you're.
Frig, if you want to mute yourself and just go in the Twitch chat and try to listen to what's wrong, I'm just gonna keep talking. I am gonna do the bracket review now.
Sure.
So, all right. So for the viewers we have right now, I am gonna go over the RC and RAS brackets for the past week or so. I know it's been a little while since we've had a show, but we are trying to get a little more consistent with that. So starting out for Rivals Recess, we had a bit of a welcome surprise with Genova taking first. I know Genova's been working hard to have a win under their belt, a whole tournament win. So I want to say congratulations to them. They're really good, and I think it was just a matter of time before this happened. So I'm excited to see what they will do in coming tournaments. As for the rest of top 8. We have Jorts, who I'm not familiar with what character they play, but I have seen them around.
Jorts plays Rano and a bit of Ori. When I first met Jorts, they played Rano. And I think they got second playing Rano this tournament from last season.
It's cool. I just want to point out that they got second and they were seed 11, so either I want to congratulate Jorts, I want to give the Cedars a little smack on the back of the head. So, as for third place, we have Synthesis, who has been doing well. I played with them a little bit ago, and they're really not bad. So I really could see an RC win under their belt as well in the next coming weeks. So if we move on to RAS, we have Minty, who I'm very surprised hasn't won already, because I'm pretty sure Minty is very good, right? Am I not mistaken? I'm fairly sure that they're pretty established.
There's a second Minty.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I was just about to say, like, Minty is like a band player, but then I guess there's another Minty in RAC.
This is RAS.
RAS.
Wait, what's?
Yeah, like.
Okay, yeah, that's very.
So it's not Pink Minty.
I was gonna say.
Minty, right? Not Minty, the SK player.
Because there's two Silvers with a Y. Near the player Silver with a Y, there's another.
There's two of those?
There's two of those, Silver with a Y, I swear to God. Because I went into the Rivals Academy server once to ping someone for GG's, and they're like, yeah, sorry, I don't play that character. I was like, are you sure? Because we played just like 5 minutes ago. But, yeah, so a little bit of a name overlap we have here. Anyway, a little bit more about RAS. We have Doots getting second. So, Dude's getting second, so good for them. And down in third place we have Catalyst. So Catalyst has been doing really well at these. Plays Claren. On the way they beat Slip, who plays Arcane, Wimby, who plays Crag. I believe Wimby plays Crag, and actually Jorts. So we're seeing Jorts enter a lot of stuff recently, and that's really good. So it is 7:59, which means it is that time to begin the actual part of the show. So Spyker, if you want to hunker down and introduce yourself. I know you don't really need one, but I think a lot of people know who you are. You want to just give them a little taste of what you're about?
For those who don't know, well, my name is Spyker.
Let's go.
I used to play Rivals. Unfortunately, I'm like in that stage of like quitting. But I've been playing for 4 years competitively, but I've had the game since day one.
Nice.
Forsburn main and Malo Pocket.
I have seen the Malo, and I'm very excited for late 2021.
If you're ever gonna see it, it's gonna be at an offline tournament that I go to, because I'm not playing online. But
I respect it.
Anyway.
I haven't really been playing a lot recently, partly because of work, partly because of like Guilty Gear, and another part because I'm waiting for locals to come back.
Yeah, same. Like everyone's on Strive, man. It's really good. Yeah, that's up.
All right, let's slip right into it. I got a couple questions for you, Spark. Let's start very generally. Now, when you think mental game, right? Usually, what comes to mind, at least for me, is the more negative end, where you get people putting a lot of emotion into the game, which results in stuff like rage quitting, or just hitting a wall because of a certain character or a certain player. And I want to start out with something very blanket conversation here. Why do you think people rage quit?
People rage quit because they get mad at certain things in the game. It's mostly that, and it's not really they're mad at themselves, but mad at like the consequence of their action, but they're not like blaming it on themselves. So the thing, it's more of like you get up tilt up aired by Absa for like the 20th time, and you're like, oh my god, Absa up tilt up air is so broken, it's horrible, like I can't play against this character anymore, alt F4. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you're getting hit by it 20 times over, like, that's like on you. Right? Everything in this game, like, there's not necessarily like cheese in Rivals V3. It's more of like it's just like silly interactions or like situations where like your favor is just like gone out of nowhere. Like you reverse edge guards, for example, like, Absa like forward airing over and over, and then they whiff the last one, and then like the Zetter bring their edge guarding just like double jump downers, and then they get triple dare spiked, and then that's the stock. That's not cheese. That's your fault for whiffing Absa forward air and not closing the stock, and then that Zetter capitalizes on that whiff. It's not like that's not cheese. That's like, So then like things like that. That's like a tilter. Like people get tilted at something like that. They're like, I had that stock, and then they just stole it from me by hitting a move 3 times, right? And it's like, well, that's on you,
Mm-hmm.
And people refuse to accept it, and that's where rage quitting happens. Usually, they just can't handle it. There's like a threshold at which they're like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Do you think the
whether
same?
that's like a quick threshold to reach or a slow one, but it happens. I think that's like one of the things, at least.
Do you think the same kinds of things tilt people at the same levels of play?
I mean, at all levels of play, people get tilted in one way or another. I mean, if you looked at like any competitive fighting game, you've seen top players tilt. You can see that in sports even. Like, I could give a good example. The greatest tennis player of all time, Roger Federer. He's smashed rackets before, right? But like he went on a whole like long string of like being really good about like controlling his temper and stuff like that. And in 2009, just all of a sudden he smashes a racket, and everyone hated it. They're like, they were shocked and like booing him and everything. It was not a good look for him. But like, even like a player who you think is like the toughest of the tough or like the best of the best, like it happens to everybody, and like nobody's exempt from it. Like it's gonna happen eventually.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I don't want to steal the mic for too long. Frig, if you've got a question, you can ask.
Yeah, I guess it's just expanding on the types of things that get salty in like common situations that you've seen, because you're also a coach, and how you help people look at these situations and push past them and have a good mindset for getting past them, basically. So if you want to talk more about that.
Like pushing past it?
Yeah, so like if you get hit by like, I think Crag tilts a lot of low level players, or you get zoned out a lot by characters like Apsa, or you just get hit by a lot of confirms or dragged and killed at 40. So if something pisses you off, what should you be doing about it?
Well, I think, and this is like way easier said than done, is to just like not care about what's going on. And in terms of like, if like something happens, it shouldn't necessarily affect you per se. And like that's a very like blanket term. Like the way what I tell people is that things like that, it's like it leads to losing, right? You're getting hit by something over and over. That's not good, right? You're getting hit. That's not good. You're gonna lose at that rate. And people don't like losing, right? So then it's caring about win or loss, but in like the micro game, like neutral losses, or like being a disadvantage the whole time, and those losses, not just like the game loss or anything, but those losses affects people a lot, and
So like
whatever kind
when
of like win or loss is it's mostly important to just like not necessarily like care too much about it, because then in the end you kind of really think about how should I say this? I can't really like answer this question like 100% on the point, like to be specific about it, but
I get what you mean.
I I treat like this whole situation in like this blanket statement of here, and I'm sure like some people who are listening might know this because I've said this before a lot. When I play the video game, I think of two things. I think about best effort and I think about fun. Right? If I try my 100% best and I have fun doing it, then I have no regrets whether I win or lose. And I think that's like incredibly important for it's incredibly important that people think that way, because then like you're not really caring about the end result. What you're focusing on is your enjoyment, because that's what matters in the end. It's a video game, right? It's not like life or
Yeah.
death or anything like that. It's nothing too serious. So, having that kind of like outlook is good, because then that also fosters growth. Because then if you learn to lose, and hold an L, right, you can learn from that, right? And learning from that,
Absolutely.
obviously you're gonna grow as a player. And and it's not I'm not saying to like completely ignore the fact that there's competition, like you can't be good without like the drive to win, like you got to have that drive to win, but you can't have that drive to win like drag you down. So like you got to be determined to win, because if you want to be the best rivals player, you want to go and win a tournament, you got to be the best person there, right? And you have to have that drive to be like, be motivated, be like, I'm gonna win this, you know. But like, if you don't have that, it's gonna be a lot harder for somebody else who has that drive, and then they can control the fact like if they lose, that's not gonna like bring them down.
So
Uh,
it's kind of like a balancing act then,
yeah,
because you can't do that without that drive, like you were saying. But if you go in with those expectations, like hyping yourself up that you want to be the best, you want to win, you want to improve, and then you inevitably don't, or you reach a shortcoming, that's going to lead to salt. So then it becomes this cyclical thing of now you have to let the salt go, you have to like bring it back down, and you have to do a lot of self reflection in order to keep going.
right. And it's like once like if you don't meet those expectations, it's two different paths. Like either you get really angry, or you get really disappointed or sad. Like, um,
Yeah, that was
I,
what Doss told me. The Doss Rogers, when I first asked him about this, he said expectation not meeting expectations will always lead to salt, plus objective reality. So
mhm.
that
I wouldn't say always leads to salt, but
no,
sometimes, because like I
yeah,
said,
not
there are two
always.
paths.
It's
But
when you
yeah,
don't meet expectations with what's presented in front of you. When you see that disparity of, oh, this should have happened, but it didn't, mostly.
mhm, yeah, and it's mostly like when you think this should have happened, it's not this should have, but this could have, right? And that's always the situation when you're doing anything competitive, right? Anything can happen, right? Nothing is set in stone ever, right? Like you look at the best player in the world, like you think, oh, they're gonna win this tournament because they're the best player in the world, right? That doesn't always happen, right? Like the best can't always
Yeah,
win, right? And like, I mean, Cake and Penguin are a good example of that. They went back and forth winning majors in 2019. You know, it wasn't always Cake, even though he was the best in the world, right? Like Penguin won some of them too, and like that's just how it is, right? You look
yeah.
at upsets that have happened. Penguin getting 17th in the RCS Water last year. Um,
Mhm.
uh,
Who was it that beat them? I
I
remember the
I don't
tournament,
I don't
but
even remember. I barely remember the
I can look it up,
tournaments.
but
I'm gonna be
it's
honest.
more of the point
And
than
not
actually
that
putting
it not
the
that it
facts.
matters,
yeah,
but the
of
fact that
course, of
like
course, it
yeah,
could
like the
happen to
number two
anyone.
player, yeah, you know, that's just my point. It's just
Um,
like anything can happen. So
I want to say, speaking of like a competitive mentality, I wanted to ask how many people in any given range of talent for the game, like top 50, top 25, how many of them do you think actively try to be quote unquote good, and how many of them are just like kind of for some reason just what do you think the disparity of effort is in like the top 50? Because there are people who are playing every day, 120 hours in the past 2 weeks type stuff, and how many do you think just kind of fall into being able to be good at the game?
um, I'm not really sure, because like I don't know everybody on. Well, I know who the people are in the top 50, but I don't know them to the level where I know how often they're playing the video game.
Mm-hmm.
The only example I can give you is like I remember Kusi saying something about playing 2,500 hours in the past year or something like that, which equates to like 3 full months, 4 full months. I
Wow.
don't know, something like that of like just nonstop rivals. And he grinded so hard, and like look where he is now. He's number 3 in the world. So
I think there's a lot of arguing that could be had, but I
He's
think
put
hey,
there's
he put in the time.
he
You
really
know,
did. He really did.
he really did,
And I'm gonna
and
say
he
stuff
deserves to
like
be where he
that.
is.
What do you think the difference is between the way Kusi might spend his time in the game and someone who, has maybe, of course, not playing similar amounts of time to Kusi, but a large amount of time in putting a large amount of time into the game and not seeing as good a result. What kinds of things do you think factor into that?
It's really like how useful is that time, you know? What like Kusi did during his time playing the game, and I know this. He played a lot with Squanto. He played a lot with Cake. Like he's playing against like all these like higher level players and grinding to get good. And he's learning from playing against these top level players. But then somebody else could be spending, let's say, the exact same amount of time playing the game, but they could only be playing against people of like their own skill level or worse than them, and that's not going to help them improve because they're like you're not you're not playing people who are better than you, and that's how you get that's like the best way to get better. It's like if you're only playing people around your skill level, you're going to plateau that way. And so if you're not using your time to play people better than you and learn from them, um then that's it's not necessarily a waste of time. But if your goal is to ultimately get better and become the best at the game, then I would say it is a waste of time because you're not using your time in a proper way
So
per
it's
se.
definitely just getting your ass beat a lot.
Sort of, yeah. Really, just like get your ass kicked and learn from it. But like if
One of
you're the only
my
one kicking ass, like what happens when you play somebody better than you? Like you're not gonna know what to do because you know what to do against people who are worse than you, but not better.
yeah,
So yeah, and then also like it's not like the problem there is that you're ignoring the top level, right? But if you're spending time playing against all skill levels, then that's actually incredibly useful than just the top level because I know I I had this problem. Like when I was first learning the game, I played against a lot of like top players. I had Kenneth and Turtlebox who are like the two people who basically taught me everything about the game. Um I'd play against them constantly. I'd try to find like, all those higher level players to play against. And then I had like maybe like 2 or 3 people at my skill level to like play more against. I had like a Sinister Taco was like somebody I played against a lot. Um, but then I would enter like RAS and then well, it was MS Bab at the time, the amateur bout. And I would lose to some dude, and I'd think like, well, he's not doing all these things that I'm used to, because like I think that they're gonna do like things that Kenneth would do or things that like Taco would do, but then they don't, because like they're I don't know. I'm gonna assume that they're at like some like slightly lower level than I am, or that I was used to at least, and
I
that's
feel
for
that
sure.
exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I didn't know what to do because I'm not playing against these players, and I'm not understanding like, what do new players do as like a blanket. Um like what do mid-level players do like in general? And then, like I'm not like really paying attention to that, and that's where I like struggled as I was learning the game. And then it's
That
just up to me to like adapt. I have to focus in and figure it out. And that's how your game sense is going to develop too. It's like if you can understand the game at every single level, then that's how you maximize your game sense really.
yeah, that actually led into my next question, which was how you should be thinking about the game when you're facing people worse than you or at your own level or people you feel comfortable against. Because we're probably not going to be fighting top level players every single time or whatever. So you got to work with what you got. And so like what your expectations should be, what you should be focusing on fighting these players, what you should be working on, because that also comes about as like focus as well, uh, focusing on what works and using what works, right?
Uh, well, one thing I don't like that you said like expectations. It's like you should never have expectations for yourself.
Yeah, you're right. That's a
But
problem I've been working on. So that's yeah,
yeah,
expectations
you
I need
should
to
never
work.
set any expectations for yourself. Like I said, like before I said like prioritizing fun and best effort. Best effort doesn't necessarily come with expectations. It's just like you kind of know what you're capable of, but you're never going to reach that like perfect level, but you can strive for that perfect level, right? And
Yeah,
striving for that is putting in your best effort. And whether it happens or not, um like so be it. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
yeah. And then I guess the second part of my question would be like focus and just finding things to work on and making sure they're done. Like how practicing focus can be a big one because once you find an autopilot solution, it becomes really easy to lose track of what you're doing, and you get off track of like what your goals were or what you were trying to do. So maintaining focus for that learning, I guess, could
Hmm.
be a next step.
Yeah. Being focused is it's more like I feel like focus on like putting focus into learning, that comes like after the fact. After you play your match, you go in VOD review, or you ask whoever played against you, like, hey, did you notice anything? Things like that. I think like that kind of learning is more of like it's a before and after the game kind of thing. And learning like during the game is more so just adaptation in the moment. And that doesn't necessarily carry over long term, in every case. So um
Let's see. I'm just looking off at my list of questions here. Let's see. We talked about plateau. So I guess we can move on. Though you did say that you were kind of at the tail end of this, but I kind of want to touch on it anyway. Is like burnout or kind of like dealing with plateauing or feeling like you haven't improved or kind of losing track of everything. How to like recenter yourself, I guess.
start with like burnout.
Yeah,
Burnout is pretty simple. Fix is just stop playing the game for a little bit. You know,
yeah. Just
like
take a
if
good
you're burnt out, like you shouldn't force yourself to play the game again. You need to have like a little bit of time to reset. And like without that, I think like if you keep forcing yourself to play when you're not in like your right state of mind, like you're not gonna play at your best, like ever. Like no matter how hard you try, like you won't get up to a level that you want. Um, so you need to just step away from the game, just like clear your mind pretty much. Do literally anything else and then come back to the game. It's like at that point, um, like once you come back, you're not gonna have like uh all your mechanical skill like 100% intact, and that just comes back after like a few sessions. So that's not the worst. But at that point you should also be reflecting on like why you got burnt out. What's like making you feel that way? Like is it like your lack of like, if you feel like you're plateauing, you take a break and you come back. You think like, what made you like feel that way? What made you plateau? Um, that could just be like simple things, like you're not fixing your habits or you're not like adapting, um, things like that. You're not mixing up. I don't know. It could be anything. And I think like that it's just like on you to like find those things, or you can get assistance in finding those things, going to like the academy or something, like ask your friend like, hey, like, can you help me VOD review? I don't know. Because then like, two eyes are better than one.
Yeah, absolutely. Leo, do you have any other questions?
I kind of wanted to build off of what you were saying. Hold on just one second. I have to fix the thing. I keep forgetting anytime I move Discord, it messes up the stream, so that's my bad. I want to talk about the mentally resetting along with burnout. Do you have any advice for, like, mentally resetting in the middle of a game? Where you wouldn't have time to, like, stop playing, give yourself a break. Like, say I just keep running into it. Is there like a general theory for calming yourself down, or just like getting back into it, quote unquote, in the middle of like a set or a game? Or is it just like ride the lightning, go for it, 100% stuff like that?
I mean, you're on the spawn platform for a reason, right? Like you're respawning and you have like a time limit on that, right? Take that time to just like, take a deep breath, fix your posture, things like that, and just slow everything down. That's like
If
the
you
biggest
have a
thing
whole
is
time, you
like
can
this game
break the
is
time.
this game is fast, right? You don't have a lot of time to do this, but you need to slow the pace of the game down. And by staying on the platform, that's one step. And then, give yourself time to play neutral slowly. Don't just rush in, right? Like, just think. And once you're off that platform, like, and you're in neutral, that thinking needs to happen much faster. So you gotta reset yourself physically and reset yourself mentally. And it's very hard to do, and like what you need to think about is like situational, so I can't say like exactly what you need to do, obviously, but it's just a matter of like, I don't know. So if you want to calm yourself down, there's like people do a lot of different things to like calm themselves down, and um the speed at which they calm down is variable. I know that one of the big reasons I like listen to music during brackets, um, so I'd have my headphones in listening to whatever music I have. It does two things for me. It helps me like focus in because it keeps me like energized. So like what I'm listening to is mostly just like punk rock music, so it has that high energy to it. And then what it also does is, and this one's a pretty interesting one, in a situation where I feel like I need that like kind of reset, at that moment I'm probably getting an adrenaline rush. um I know that for a lot of people, they get like their hands sweaty or whatever it is, but for me, and this is for very few people, I get incredibly painful chest pains doing like an adrenaline rush. It feels more like anxiety, because like, oh, now I'm like a little bit nervous, like this is like tourney, everything's on the line here.
I don't know about
And
you, man, but I can't even get on casual without turning on my box fan, and I just gotta air everything out, man.
in tourney, it's a lot more stressful because you know what's on the line, but it's hard to like kind of flesh all of that out because that thought is in the back of your head. If you're going in thinking like, oh, some people like Corks, for example, he likes to say, I just treat tourney matches like friendlies, and that's like one way to look at it. But like, at one point, it's that reality of like you being in bracket is gonna set in, and that's where like your adrenaline rush, your anxiety just flows in you. So when I get like those kind of chest pains, like my music actually helps me relieve that pain because now I'm not like I kind of shift my focus on and off from the game to my music and back. So if I'm like focusing on my music, like even though it's like intense, it's punk rock, like it helps me relax because I enjoy the music, just listening to it.
I was gonna ask.
So
I know you were talking about your music. I was gonna ask, what kind of music do you listen to when you play? You said punk rock.
yeah.
So, any suggestions? What's on the Spyker playlist then?
I think that's up to the person listening to music.
Oh, I'm
Like,
asking
not gonna
you.
say,
I'm
like,
not
listen
asking
to
for in
this.
general.
Like no, listen. Listen. I'm not
he
gonna
just-
say listen to this music because if you don't like that music, like you're not gonna,
Alright.
I'm not gonna say listen to death metal in
We're-
bracket because I like death metal, and
Alright,
then you're gonna
we've-
listen to death metal and play bad because you're like, wow, I hate this music. It's up to you to like find the music that you like if you want to listen to music in bracket.
I'm
Like,
not
that's
asking. I'm
separate.
not asking the sports psychology professional right now. I'm asking Spyker the person. What do you listen to while you play?
I already told you I listen to punk rock music.
All right, we're not getting into details. I get it.
No, we don't
I
need
for
to.
one, I find myself listening to I would say similarly kind of intense stuff. It's King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. They have an album they released a couple years ago called Polygon Dwanaland, and it's an album that all of the songs are in non-traditional time signatures. The traditional time signatures 3/4 or 4/4, and this album is in 5/4 and 7/4. It's very funky stuff, and I think
Dude, 5/4 is like the best time signature, Loki. I just want to say that. I went to school for music. That is my shit.
Do you take 5?
You gotta listen to like 13, 16.
I know that's just
13's great. I was gonna say it just kind of helps me remember that I shouldn't work at the same tempo all the time or the same time signature, right? Because it reminds me that sure, what I'm doing might work, it might be good, but someone's gonna catch on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just reminds me of another question I want to ask you in a bit. It reminds me of like how other people like have different tempos and how I should kind of match their tempo in a way. I have to like respect the music my opponent is making. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it helps me mix myself up, so to speak. So Frig, I want to extend that question to you. What do you find yourself jamming to while you're playing? I
am a techno head. So
all right.
I first got in with like old school. Wait, it's Deadmau5. Deadmau5 isn't old school. It's like 2010 shit.
I don't know, man. Some of these Rivals kids, I wouldn't know.
Okay.
And Frigo, you're a Rano main, right?
Yes.
Oh, so I get it now. So you listen to techno music, which uses fake instruments, and like how you use Rano, which requires fake skill.
I love.
No, I'm kidding. That's just a jab at you.
Right.
I'm kidding.
I do want to like get into this thing because you mentioned this thing about like odd time signatures, and it's like when I listen to like this techno music, they do two things, which is changing like it's called like the almost like the parameters or the effects or something like that. So even if you're listening to like the same sound, that sound in and of itself changes over time. So even if you're doing like some of the same stuff in like your gameplay, for example, it can be slightly tweaked here or there, and it'll be just as cool the 50th time you did it. And then with the tempo thing, I like this thing called polyrhythms, where it's kind of like if you played a 5/4 section and a 4/4 section.
Hey, okay, so small fun fact, I actually looked this up and I know what it sounds like.
Yeah,
polyrhythm
it's
is more
it's
like
very trippy, but it's very, very cool.
I would
better example of a polyrhythm would just be like triplets against eighth notes. That's polyrhythmic.
Yep.
It's not really like time signature against time signature.
I'm off of the thing again. See, I keep looking in the Discord.
So triplets are a classic example. So when I listen to techno, it's like even if you're hearing the same riff over and over again, because That's what a lot of like synthesized music is. You're basically taking a beat and you're looping it over and over. You still have to find ways to make that variable or else it gets boring, right? So you take that and you put it on a different downbeat every single time, which is what a polyrhythm does. You basically change the start point for that beat. It will still be interesting because the bass line behind it will change even if it all repeats on itself, which is very, very cool.
Mhm.
So
It's good to keep the same basis for a game plan. You just got to
Exactly.
mix up the decorations on top of your cake there.
yeah, because
Yeah.
you're playing a game, you're going to be doing the same combos and stuff over and over again, but the situations are always going to be so variable, right?
Right.
So you just kind of have to know what you're capable of and understand that even if the situations are going in, you can still have the confidence that what you're going to input will work most of the time. Like you have not like an expectation, but just kind of a feeling for it. So you
Mhm.
know it's coming. Like when you're listening to a good piece of music or you're about to hear like a drop, you just know it.
Yeah, but then like there comes the dissatisfaction of like, oh, I can't like have this cool thing happen at the exact same time as my music. Like, oh, I'm in disadvantage when the drop hits, and it's like, oh no, I wanted to do something cool with this part of the
Oh,
music. That's how I
that
feel.
definitely stressful. You're setting
Yeah.
yourself a little up for failure there. Then we come back to
Yeah.
the circle of expectations here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I zone
So
out. I
then,
forget I listen to music sometimes. So
I
it
have
doesn't really
so
like
I,
piss me off, but I
it,
get what you mean.
yeah. At the end of the day, don't let your music like take too much focus out of the game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
most of the time I literally have I have the music off in Rivals, and I literally just listen to the gameplay and like my own complaining, and I've gotten this far somehow, so I haven't stopped.
Fun fact: I don't even listen to game audio. I have nothing.
Really?
Yep, I don't play with game audio. Because if I ever went to a local tournament, I'd have my headphones in plugged into my phone for music.
Oh, I see.
Right? How am I gonna listen to game audio if I don't have like the setups, like the headset or whatever it is?
I mean, the thing that
Yeah.
immediately comes to mind for me being, the player of the character, but Edalus Icicles, I would think would be a little bit annoying without the audio cue. Do you find
I
yourself able to handle stuff
I
like that?
simply look up at the top of the screen.
Well, can't argue with that.
Yeah, I don't need audio cues, and I've like proved that. I was consistently getting like second and third at SoCal locals.
Nice.
And I never played game audio.
I
You
just
know.
do think that's interesting because in a game like a very similar game like Melee, edge guarding the space animals, their side special has a sound out way before the hitbox or even the character moves, and I'm not
Right.
sure how early the audio cue is for icicles in the move, but for space animal side special, which is the illusion, it has that audio cue really early, and a lot of people that I knew would complain about audio setups at tournaments for that very reason. And I think it is interesting that you have overcome it in a different way, just by kind of using your eyes. I know it's not the most special thing, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's just just look lol. Yeah,
It's
but yeah,
definitely
like like some people like rely on audio cues, some people rely on visual cues, or some people like not like one or the other. But like yeah, to me, like I don't need the audio cues. That's just like how it is. I would play like at home and practice, just with like game audio and like the standard rivals music, and then it would just be like a completely different environment at a tournament. And so I shut off like after a while. I was like, you know what? I need this to match because I want that same like kind of like auditory experience, of just my music. Cause then me listening to music plus the game audio threw me off a little bit because now if I'm trying to like focus in on my music, all these hits sounds and like wave dash sounds, they're all like kind of distracting me.
hearing Edalus Icicles in the middle of a song is not something I would want to hear either.
Yeah, so I shut off game sounds entirely and I just have music playing, whether it's just the rivals music in game or it's my own music. It really depends. if I'm streaming, I can't listen to my music because then I'll get DMCA'd.
Oh.
But
Waiting
yeah.
for someone to make
That's
it
why I
loud.
do. That's why I do a radio show where the music is theoretically our voices, and we don't have to have any background noise.
Yep.
Anyway, that was a fun little talk about music. I think music, in a lot of ways, is applicable to. Like, making music is applicable to playing a game with a lot of freedom of movement like this. You know, in the way that some people don't like certain kinds of music or certain play styles. You know?
Yeah, a lot of subjectivity, but like that's just how a lot of things are. So.
Oh, of course, right. And the other thing is that it's all subjective. There's no best combo or best move or best best character, but not like
Or
yeah, all right. But just in the way that it's up to you. It's really up to you what you do with it, and I think that's really good, and really really cool about playing these kinds of games. And I think it applies to other games as well, of course. You know, Rivals of Aether just sounds like, you know, to me the gameplay just looks like what Frig listens to. So a lot of high BPM stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to circle back around to oopsies. All right, we're fine. Anyway,
We dropped
I hope so.
no, I dropped I have a lock for my locker at work. Anyway, I wanted to ask, have you as a player kind of moved on from getting angry at smaller things in the game? Do you still find yourself tilted by the same kinds of things you would think someone with a quote-unquote worse mentality would have? Or...
I mean, myself personally, in the past, like, little bit that I've played the game recently, I haven't really played too many people that play, like, awkwardly or anything. I think the only two people I've played recently are Gushko and Gecko. And they can definitely be two tilting players because Gecko is, like, extremely specials heavy crag, and then Gushko like kind of rolls his face on the controller or the keyboard, whatever he uses.
Dude, I really genuinely don't know how to deal with people who can
by
do
that,
that.
I mean I'm not saying that to be rude. I mean it's just that he's constantly inputting something. Like there's never a situation where he's like stops applying pressure, and that he's like Buster in that sense too. Like Buster is constantly throwing out a move so that he could just hit you. And like that's what he wants ultimately, is he's just gonna keep throwing out moves until he gets his hit.
It's terrifying,
And
really.
it works, you know, like because he knows what moves he's using. And and like somebody described that to me as tactical mashing, because he's throwing out moves constantly in a way that, like, you know, it avoids bait and punish, because he's using a lot of soft commitments in order to bait hard commitments from people. Because it's like, oh, he's just mashing. And it's like, no, he's just constantly throwing out moves. And
moves that are
like,
safe, right?
Right, yeah, he's throwing out safe moves, so then you think like, oh, I'm just gonna punish him after he like throws a move, but you're trying to punish him when he throws out a safe move, and then he punishes you for it, because it's like, you know, he'll just move out of the way, and it's like, oh, now you've forced yourself in with a hard commitment, and boom, you get punished, because he didn't commit as hard as you think he did. And like that's kind of how Gushko plays too. With the exception of like spamming roll and then having sign charge cover roll. I think that's like the stupidest thing, because then
Dude,
you just get hit by sign while he's in vulnerability.
Dude.
But hey, it works. It works. You can't knock it. Can't knock it. It works.
I was this is you are the person who was advocating for the sign charge indicator, right?
Huh? Me?
I think I remember someone there was a while ago. They made there was a whole thread about why sign charge is really dumb right now, and I personally don't like it.
It wasn't me. I think it was like Sawtooth or something. Like Sawtooth always makes big threads, but like I don't know.
It sounds like
it
sounds like a Sawtooth.
I remember
thing,
Penguin saying something. Penguin was saying something about like if you made like the visual indicator for sign charge like a white flash that didn't last one frame, then it would be a lot easier to react to just based off of like visuals, because some people don't play with audio, and even then the audio cue isn't that great.
I mean, now it's because like Endless Icicles.
It's not, yeah, it's not something like Endless Icicles or like like Absa's down special. Like, of course, you have a visual and an audio indicator, but like the audio indicator is like still a thing. Or like Thunderline. Thunderline's better.
Yeah,
example.
Thunderline, of course.
Like you have that audio cue, not just the visual cue. But the audio is like the first thing you hear.
And
But like, yeah, like.
Speaking of Ori, do you think Ori is like rising up in the I do not like this character tier list? Or do you think
The 100%, and I think it's just because of the fact that everything's been online for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Certain characters get a lot more annoying online. Crag is like the easiest choice, like Crag.
Yeah.
Edalus.
Oh, what do
and
you
then, like,
mean?
Ori.
He's bad.
So like those three, and maybe even Shovel Knight. I don't even know. I don't have enough experience against Shovel Knight offline. But like Ori, Crag, and Edalus, and maybe even like Rano, and
Oh yeah, Rano, please.
Rano and Claren too.
And Orkane,
I mean,
and
those five-
Absa and Eliana.
No,
and...
not everybody. Not everybody.
You
Not
just
everybody.
try
I think
and-
maybe
yeah.
those like five are probably like the most benefited in lag, as in like lag benefits them. But it doesn't necessarily knock them offline. But I think Ori is kind of like the most annoying to deal with because of how crazy the frame data is and how much less precise you have to be compared to like some other characters.
Plus some
Like I know
distance.
Maple is like really fast and stuff, but like Maple combos and whatever are pretty precise compared to Ori combos.
Ori combos,
Like,
like, man, I hate to be that guy who just complains about the bad matchup, but I really feel like I can't do anything once I get hit. I really can't feel like I can't commit to a DI direction. I can slight DI, but then they can just like dash back and charge sign, and I'm like, ah. Now I have to play neutral against Ori again.
Yeah, but like, hey, at least you're in neutral.
Absolutely, I'll take neutral over disadvantage, even
any
if it's
day.
bad. Even if it's bad, I'll take a chance. Like you said, anything can happen.
Yep. Yeah, and it's like it's really just like online and like complaining about these characters. Like once you go offline, it's an entirely different video game. Remember, like before the pandemic, there was so much Raster hate, and then the pandemic hits and everything's online, and nobody cares about Raster anymore. Now it's all about Ori. It's all about Edalus. It's all about Rano. Like nobody batted an eye at Raster anymore, and that just like goes to
I
show
mean-
that like how does this character just like phase out of that like that attention, like even even in like RCS Air, like Blue won RCS Air, right? And
Pretty sure.
I mean he didn't do it like entirely with Raster, I don't think, or maybe he did.
I
But,
believe he went Raster the entire time. I mean, he
Well, yeah,
3-0'd
like,
he
but-
3-0'd Zaro, right? Or 3-1?
Yeah, it was something like that. And I think like yeah, I don't remember. But,
He
like,
wrecked
yeah,
house
he
is
won
what we're
the-
trying to say.
Yeah, and as Raster, but like
The
people
bad
didn't
character,
really
quote
care.
unquote.
Yeah, like people weren't really complaining about it. But like offline, like Genesis 6, I think it was, had 4 Rasters in top 8.
Yeah, that's
I think so.
yeah. That sounds right. I'm
Six
still
or
I'm still
7.
pretty
I
new
don't
as
remember.
far
It was
as
one of them. Yeah.
history concerned. I'm still pretty new, so my rivals history is a little fuzzy.
I see. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head because like I don't know. It's been a while. But
Hey man,
yeah,
I'm
there were
excited for
at one point there was four Rasters in top 8, and everyone is like, wow. Usually there's like variability within the characters. That's always how it's been.
Mm-hmm.
But with online tournaments, like even then, it's still variable. Just because the players, like everyone's like good in their own way, and stuff like that. And like you can see that offline, but like that tournament in particular is just, it's like that was crazy. To have 4 of the same character. That's half of the top 8 is Raster.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And now we've moved on to RRC, where half the cast was
Eliana, dude.
like silver.
Dude, what do you think what is it with the
my,
waves?
the DLC.
Is it like
It's a DLC nightmare, and then offline, like DLC kind of just doesn't.
I'm
doesn't
so
really
glad, dude.
execute
I'm so
well.
glad I'm Basecast right now. So glad I didn't switch or anything. I remember when you had to buy Reno. These kids and their in-house DLC characters.
Yeah.
Spine Run
You
was
used
like
to have
that
to
when
pay for privilege back in my day.
It's pay
I
to win.
paid for my hair. Excuse me.
Anyways,
All right. I think I sent a message in Twitch chat. I don't know how many people are just hanging out and listening. Or how many people got any questions for Spyker? But in the Discord, if you guys aren't in the Discord, we have a viewer questions channel. If you guys want to pop in and ask any questions, that is
pull up
cool
Twitch
right
chat,
now.
see.
Spiker, you can even pop in the Twitch stream if you need to. I don't know where
Yeah.
everyone is right now, but we are putting
I'm in.
that up right now. I have a couple more questions lined up, but we are winding down. So I want to say thank you first, Spiker, for coming on. I appreciated having you for the time we did have you.
Yeah, no problem.
Next week, I think what we are gonna do is we're gonna have Code Cracker on next time, and we are gonna talk about probably Rivals Recess. I think he was had a little bit of part in that, so we can go over a bit of history of what that was like. But until then, I'm gonna ask a couple more questions, and Frig, if you have any more, you can ask them now as well.
Sure. I mostly just be like continuing the meta discussion, or if we really want to go all the way back to like that mentality, just like dealing with losses. I guess those are like some of the last questions I've got, or like how to actually objectively look at your progress and what to do with it, stuff like that.
Wait. You were like cutting out in, like the middle of it for me.
Oh, yeah, I think I like on push to talk. I guess it's just how you would objectively look at your practice or look at your VOD review and stuff like that.
If I were looking at like a VOD, I mostly look at well, I watch it over a few times. I look at like neutral. It's like, why did I lose neutral? And then like within that neutral loss, it's like, what am I doing in my disadvantage? And I kind of just like kind of do that over and over. Like, how did I recover here? Or like, I won neutral because I did this, and how did I capitalize on that neutral win? Things like that, really. That's like kind of all I'm looking for. And then kind of watch it over again, and you look for habits. Like, if you're like on the ledge, do you tech roll in? Or like if you recover, do you roll in immediately? Things like that. Just like little nitpicky stuff. Or maybe like recovery, it's like, are you like wasting your resources all the time, or like do you pick the same option over and over? Looking for that kind of stuff is like what happens next.
Okay, because I've done VOD review a couple of times. I will admit I have been playing a little less because I have been doing work. But eventually, when the summer ends, I am going to get back into it. And I wanted to ask, in the realm of reviewing, what do you think is the easiest way to tell a bad habit from a good habit? Because when I'm playing with someone who is, a lower level than I am, and they ask for advice, and I don't really know what to say, like, you're just kind of losing neutral to me, because I don't have the best understanding of what I'm doing. I'm mildly, accomplished, but outside of that, I'm just a player of the game. So what kind of habits should I be forming against players that will apply to more general situations? Because when I play someone for a while, obviously I pick up new habits specifically against that person. But is there an easy way to tell difference between a generally good habit or a person-specific one?
Person-specific things are more of like, you play against a certain person and it's like, oh, this person always rolls out rather than rolling in, because it's like, oh, maybe like a general thing is like, people like in disadvantage, they'll roll in after they get hit, whether it's a tech roll in or a missed tech into a roll in. A lot of people do that, but then maybe a person specific thing could be like, this person always goes out rather than in, right? So it's not that general thing that you would be looking for, it's something else. And then they always commit to that. And that's a bad habit because there's no mix up, right? It's, and it's a habit because it happens every time. And when something like that happens every time, it has to be a habit, because then the player isn't adapting, like mixing up their option. So that's just like, you can say that's a bad habit. Good habits would just be like things to do and like punish, or like things like making it a habit to, like, when you hit somebody near a platform, you always like wave land and try to follow up with a tilt. I always do it, and even if I whiff, the idea is there, right? Like, I hit somebody with a fair and they DI out, and then like I try to like wave land down tilt, but they're like too far away from the down tilt. It's like, well, the thought's there. That's a good habit because that's something I should be doing, is going for those like wave land follow-ups.
Mm-hmm.
But like, regardless of like whether I hit it or not, like, that's a good habit, because then that's a much better extension than just committing to another aerial.
Mm-hmm. And I think
in most cases, at least, it's like, in that situation where I went for it, it's like, oh, maybe I should have done that aerial that time, but I went for that follow-up because I thought I could hit it, kind of thing.
Mm.
So
I
yeah.
think a lot of the issue with habits when it comes to like learning the game like very early on is that one's goal tends to be just kind of hitting your opponent, right? Because that's, in the most blanket term possible, your goal of the game is to hit your opponent. And I think a lot of newer players take that too literally and don't think about stuff like stage positioning. And I can admit, even I don't really think about stage positioning when I play. I just kind of end up winning or losing. So I kind of wanted to ask, I mean, this is kind of character specific, but are there some good ways to like where should I be positioning myself in situations like an edge guard? And I know that's really vague or specific depending on what we're talking about. Like when it comes to something like Clarin up B, which has several mix-ups in and of itself, or something like Absa up B, which can be crouch canceled but isn't quite frame positive enough to be true into a punish. So is there a good? I mean, the answer to a lot of these is just keep playing, right? Because that's where you get a lot of your experience. But
yeah, I think like sometimes like these things kind of like fall into a game sense of like knowing your situational advantage. It's like, where do you want to position yourself in general, but then also like if if the opponent still has X or Y option available, then you position yourself a little differently.
Yeah, that is some stuff to account for. I myself,
yeah,
keeping track of whether or not Absa has the little cloud bounce, dude. I swear that's one of the key things I'm missing in that matchup, because that's a resource you never really think about, is when she does that little hop stuff. So yeah, that tiny situational thinking like that is really what I think puts a lot of players up against that wall, because everyone talks about you're gonna hit the wall eventually, and I think micromanaging those situations really comes in key there. Do you find that good players are good because, well, obviously because they win more, but because they have the experience to cover those kinds of really niche situations? Because there are cases where a player who has very little actual time in the game, and I mean, obviously they can have experience coming from other games, but someone who might have very little time compared to, a way more experienced player might have like a better situational understanding in general, or like a character specific one. Like say they played against their friend all the time, X years ago.
Yeah. I think it's more so like, this ties in with like how well you're spending your time as well.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until like I think like 2019 that Turtlebox hit 1,000 hours in Rivals, and he was like a top 50 player from season 1. Like he didn't even have 1,000 hours in the game himself.
If you don't mind me
Like-
asking, who did Total Box play?
He was a Crag. He was considered one of the best Crag players in the world alongside
Nice.
MSB.
Nice.
It was I think he was top 10 at one point. If not, he was close to it. But like yeah, he was definitely top 20. But yeah, he was insanely good.
So that just it just goes to show how far a concept like game sense can take you, right?
Yeah, like game sense really carries because he also had that mechanical skill to like back him up.
Right.
And like the meta is like way different now. I think like a better example I could give you is like Dinla. Dinla was a Maple player who like just out of nowhere became a top 50 threat, and he had like 500 600 hours in the game, and he was already considered like a near top 50 level.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredibly crazy to see. It's just like he just understood the game, like just like that, and it doesn't happen for everybody. Obviously, it takes
Right.
some people it takes a really long time for some people to understand the game. It takes a short amount of time for some people, like Dinla, like
Or Tanko. I want to mention Tanko as well, who has very
Tanko's
little
a good
hours in the game. And the first time I played him, I thought I had done something wrong. I had like unlearned the game somehow. But he was just really good, and I was overestimating him because he had hit me up for friendlies like the day or two before he just won RAS. He just won it like outright and like 3-0'd, I think, winners finals. And I remember looking at that because at the time I had not been entering RAS. And I had looked at it and I thought, and I was thinking back to our games, and I was just thinking, wow, he was really outplaying me. Because I have, hold on, let me check. I have 1,126 hours, right? And I'm a lot of it is probably idling on like the menu, but I've like 400 something hours on Edalus himself, and it's just it's I'm not mad at Tanko or Dinla or any of those. I think it's really impressive how some people are able to grasp the concepts in the game as quickly, and I think it's cool to see players like Dinla excel.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
hours don't matter.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I looked at Tanko's hours for reference. He has 885 hours.
Yeah.
And, he's like almost about to win MS ban. Like,
didn't he get like top 4 with Crag?
I don't know, something like that. But Tanko's very good.
Tanko's he's nasty. All right.
And a huge thing is also just like the Turtle Box was like an interesting case because I think he's like 30 now, 31. But Tanko is like incredibly young.
Tanko's like 13.
Yeah, something like that.
I think
right?
Tanko's 13 or 14.
Really, really young. And then Dinla, at the time where he was considered like a huge threat, he was like 17 or so. 16,
Forest.
17.
Forest also was.
Forest.
He was a minor when he won. Oh man, what did he win? Like Smash and Splash or something? This is for Project M.
Yeah, he won some big PM tourney. Like he was like 15 or so. 14
Yes,
or 15.
yes. That's also Tech Boy.
But,
Tech Boy plays Ice Climbers. He's also very young and very good. He won.
Like all these like young players are
They're
the
crazy,
people
man.
who learn much faster,
Mm.
because like they're still like, they're still children. They're learning, and like children learn at like a much faster rate because they're absorbing information faster. So their brains are still developing more than, say, somebody who's like in their 20s, their late 20s.
Oh no, me in my 20s.
Yeah, us over here in our 20s.
These crazy
So,
kids, right?
it's like, and there are obviously exceptions, but just like in general, like at a younger age, you grasp information much faster. I could give another example. Jirai is still a teenager. He's like almost 18 now. But like in this past year, he went from like losing to my Abson keyboard to becoming a top 50 player like within the year.
I think
And so
top
that's
50
just insane.
top 50 I think gets thrown around a lot. And I think especially in the online era, I think top 50 is like a very gray area right now. You know what I mean? A lot of people.
Regardless, it's still like
Yeah,
I think
no, I'm
that,
not trying
like,
to
even
detract from.
offline, I think that like the players who are like those kinds of threats, like if they're able to show that they're consistently those kinds of threats, like
Yeah.
like how Durai has done. He consistently beats Protagify. He consistently beats Blair. He's putting in that, like, he put in that effort, and he learned
Yeah.
super fast.
Yeah.
So
There's
I think like even when offline comes around, like for good, like that's like he's still gonna be top 50.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think he's
The
not
people
gonna.
who know how to learn, they really just rock it up fast. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I think we're gonna wind down a little further. If you have anything you want to.
Quite a tangent.
Yeah. Oops.
Oops.
Yeah.
No, it was
Well,
very-
that's why
very
that's why it's a radio show and not a podcast. Because on a podcast we'd have to talk about one thing. Anyway.
Oh, we did. This was about
True.
mentality, but it was a good discussion.
Yeah, and again, I want to thank you, Spyker, for coming on to WROA. It's only our third episode. I think we're doing all right, and
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for coming on, man. And if there's anything you want to advertise or whatever, or say, or
Go watch my Valorant montage on YouTube.
okay.
Hey.
Is your YouTube Spyker FX?
It is.
I gotta go find it. Oh, it's coming up with cars. There we go. All right.
Oh yeah, you'll get cars because
I was literally
Spyker
saying earlier.
is a car brand from the Netherlands.
All right. Video plugged. Go watch that.
Yo.
Anyway, our next episode is gonna be whenever. It's gonna be in around 2 weeks. I think the last one was exactly 2 weeks ago. So I think that's how we're gonna have the shows come out every 2 weeks. So next week we are looking to have Codec, I believe is what he's going by now.
Yeah, he goes.
Because I get in my head I still say
We
Codecracker,
can just
but
call them code.
Yeah.
got Code, and we're gonna have Code on next week. And yeah, that's the plan for next week. Thank you everyone for coming and watching. I saw at one point we had 11 people in the Twitch chat, which I think is the most we've had so far. So I want to thank you guys for coming out and watching, and hanging out with us. I'm Leo Luster. My co-host Frig. If you have anything to say.
It means a lot that you guys all stopped by. I'd also like to say thanks to Spyker for stopping by. It was really cool listening to you speak. And this will be up on YouTube afterwards, and we'll try and get more news up on other projects that we want to work on as well. So be on the lookout for all that.
All right, and with that, I'm gonna head out. Thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.